There are two things I've always known about my family. The first is that my brother Marcus could do no wrong. The second is that I was the one they measured him against. And I always came up short. Not because I failed. I graduated with honors. I built a career from nothing, paid off my own student loans, showed up to every birthday dinner, every holiday, every hospital waiting room. I did all of it quietly, without applause, because that's what you do for the people you love. But love, I've learned, isn't always returned in equal measure. Marcus is 3 years older than me. Growing up, he had the kind of presence that filled a room. Loud laugh, easy smile, the sort of confidence that made adults lean in when he talked. My mother used to say he had the gift. She never quite explained what I had, if anything at all. I used to tell myself it didn't bother me. I got pretty good at believing that lie. By the time I was in my late 20s, I had built something I was genuinely proud of. I worked as a project coordinator at a mid-sized architecture firm in Columbus. Nothing glamorous, but steady, meaningful. My manager had just recommended me for a senior position, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like the ground beneath me was solid. Marcus, meanwhile, had spent the better part of a decade bouncing between ideas, a food truck that never launched, a real estate venture that dissolved before the first property sold, a consulting business that none of us could ever quite explain at family dinners. My parents floated him through all of it, quietly, without question, the way water finds a crack and fills it without being asked. I never said a word about it. Not once. The call came on a Thursday afternoon in October. My mother's voice had that particular brightness she reserves for things she's already decided are exciting. She said the whole family was gathering that Sunday for a celebration dinner. My grandmother, my father's mother, the woman who had emigrated from Georgia with nothing but a suitcase and a refusal to be defeated, was turning 80 years old. I loved my grandmother more than I had words for. She used to call me her quiet river, said I ran deep and steady while everyone else made noise on the surface. I told her that sounded like a polite way of saying I was boring. She laughed and said, "No, baby, it means when the storm comes, you're the one still moving." I said I'd be there without hesitation. The drive from my apartment to my parents' house in Westerville takes about 25 minutes on a clear day. That Sunday, I left early, stopped to pick up my grandmother's favorite flowers, yellow tulips, which she said reminded her of the first spring after the hardest winter of her life, and drove with the radio low. Something felt off before I even turned onto the street. A familiar tightness in my chest, the kind your body learns before your mind catches up. I told myself it was nothing, just nerves, just the old habit of bracing myself before walking into a room where Marcus would be the sun, and I would be, as always, one of the less interesting planets. I pulled into the driveway. My brother's truck was already there, along with 2 cars I didn't recognize, probably relatives who had driven in for the occasion. I sat in my car for a moment longer than I needed to, smoothed my jacket, and reminded myself that this day was about my grandmother, not about any of the rest of it. Inside, the house smelled like my mother's pot roast and something sweet baking in the oven. The table was set for 12. There were flowers in the center that were not the yellow tulips I brought. Mine were accepted at the door with a brief smile and placed on the kitchen counter, away from the display. I noticed. I let it go. My grandmother was seated at the head of the table, looking exactly like what she was, a woman who had outlasted every hard thing the world had sent her way. She wore a deep green dress and her good pearl earrings, the ones she said she was saving for special occasions. When she saw me, her face opened into something warm and uncomplicated. "There she is," she said. "Come sit by me." I crossed the room and kissed her cheek. She smelled like lavender and the particular warmth of someone who has lived long enough to stop being nervous about anything. I handed her the tulips separately, the ones I carried in. She held them against her chest like they were something precious. Marcus came in from the backyard a few minutes later with my father, both of them carrying the particular ease of men who had been laughing at something together. He clapped his hands when he saw the table, said it looked incredible, and my mother beamed. He hugged my grandmother and she hugged him back, the way she always did. I didn't resent that. I just noticed it. We settled into dinner the way families do. Multiple conversations happening at once. The sound of silverware, someone asking someone else to pass the bread. My cousin talked about her new job in Nashville. My uncle argued gently with my father about football. It was ordinary in all the right ways for about 45 minutes. Then Marcus tapped his glass with his knife. "I want to say something," he said, and the table quieted. He was smiling, that easy, practiced smile, and he straightened in this chair with the posture of a man who was comfortable taking up space. "This is a big day, 80 years. I think we all know that Grandma is the reason this family is what it is." There were murmurs of agreement. My grandmother tilted her head with a modest smile. "And I've been doing some thinking," Marcus continued, "about legacy, about what it means to carry this family forward." He paused, and something shifted in the room. Something almost imperceptible, like the air pressure dropping before a storm. "I've been talking to Mom and Dad about some things, about the property in Macon, about the family name and what it means to actually represent it." I went very still. My grandmother's expression didn't change, but I saw her hands settle flat on the table. "I think we all know," Marcus said, his voice carrying that smooth, reasonable tone he used when he was saying something unreasonable, "that not everyone in this family is in a position to steward what Grandma has built, what our family represents. It takes a certain kind of person." He glanced around the table and then his eyes landed on me. "Just for a moment. Just long enough. And not everyone sitting here has demonstrated that they're that person." The table went quiet in a different way than before. I felt the heat rise to my face. I looked at my mother. She was looking at her plate. I looked at my father. He was looking at his glass. My aunt across the table gave me a brief, apologetic glance and then looked away. I understood then. This had not been spontaneous. This had been arranged. "Marcus," I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. "What exactly are you saying?" He leaned back, completely relaxed, the way someone is when they believe the room is already on their side. "I'm just being honest, the way family should be. There's the property in Macon. There's the property in Macon. There are Grandma's things. And I think it's worth having a real conversation about who is actually positioned to take care of all of that, who has the right standing." He let the pause stretch. "Some of us have been building something, and some of us have been playing house in a 900-square-foot apartment pretending that's enough." Someone at the table inhaled sharply. My cousin Diane stared at the table. My throat tightened. 900 square feet. He knew exactly what he was doing. He had reduced everything I had built, the savings, the promotion, the years of showing up, down to square footage. And no one said a word. "I've given my whole career to something real," I said quietly. "I've supported myself without asking anyone in this family for a single dollar. I've been here for every moment that mattered. I'm not sure what standing means to you, but I think I know what it means to actually show up." Marcus smiled, patient in that infuriating way. "This isn't personal, it's just practical. The family name means something, and not everyone at this table has earned the right to carry it forward." He said it gently, like a verdict delivered with good manners. "That's just the truth." My mother finally looked up, but she didn't speak. My father cleared his throat and reached for his water glass. I felt something crack open inside me, not into tears, but into a cold, clarifying silence. I had spent my entire life being the one who stayed quiet, the one who didn't make scenes, the one who told herself it didn't matter while watching the world orient itself around my brother like iron filings around a magnet. And still, I had shown up. Still, I had stayed. And now I was being told at my grandmother's birthday table that I hadn't earned my place here. I pressed my hands flat against my thighs beneath the table. I was not going to fall apart. I was not going to give him that. And then, from the head of the table, came the sound of my grandmother setting down her fork. It was a small sound, delicate almost, the kind of sound that wouldn't register in any other moment. But something about the precision of it, the deliberateness, made everyone turn. My grandmother looked at Marcus, not with anger, not with warmth either, with the particular unblinking steadiness of someone who has earned the right to say exactly what they mean. "You said the family name means something," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried the way quiet voices do when they have absolute authority behind them. "I want to make sure we understand which family you're talking about." Marcus opened his mouth. She raised one hand and he closed it. "I built something in this life," she said, "not with noise, not with promises, with 30 years of work that nobody applauded, and nobody photographed, and nobody made speeches about. I know what it looks like to build something real, Marcus. I have seen it up close." She paused. "And I have watched this child." She did not look at me, but I knew. "Show up for this family the way the rest of you have not." The silence at the table was absolute. She drove 45 minutes to bring me tulips because she remembered from a conversation 7 years ago that they remind me of hope after a hard winter. My grandmother's voice did not waver. "You flew in from 3 hours away and forgot I don't eat red pepper, which I have told you every Thanksgiving for 15 years. A single startled sound came from somewhere near the end of the table. I wasn't sure if it was a laugh or a breath. "The family name," my grandmother said, "belongs to the people who act like family, not the people who announce it loudest." She looked at Marcus directly, and I watched something in his posture shift. The ease going out of it, the confidence thinning like water in sun. "You want to talk about legacy and standing and who has earned the right to carry this family forward. I am the family, Marcus, and I am telling you, she has carried it further than you know." Marcus said nothing. My father was staring at the center of the table. My mother had her hands folded in her lap and was looking somewhere past the window. "Now," my grandmother said, and she picked up her fork with the same deliberateness with which she had set it down. "I would like to finish my birthday dinner in peace, and I would very much appreciate it if we could have one evening where we celebrate something instead of dismantling it." Nobody spoke for a long moment. Then my cousin Diane said, quietly but clearly, "Happy birthday, Grandma." And one by one, like small lights coming on, the others echoed it. Marcus didn't speak again for the rest of the meal. He helped clear the plates when dinner ended, moved through the kitchen with a quietness I had never seen on him before. I didn't look at him directly. There was nothing I wanted to say to him that the evening hadn't already said better. When the cake came out, my grandmother made me sit beside her again. She put her hand over mine while everyone sang. That warm, papery hand that had braided my hair when I was 6, that had held mine in the car after my first heartbreak, that had waved from the driveway every time I left for something that scared me, and something that didn't. After the candles, she leaned over and said, close to my ear, "Don't you ever let anyone in this family or anywhere else make you small. You hear me? The ones who do the quiet work always look invisible right up until the moment they don't." I nodded. I couldn't quite speak. "You are not invisible to me," she said. "You never have been." I stayed and helped clean up long after most of the others had gone home. My mother and I washed dishes side by side for a while without talking, and I thought about all the conversations we had never had and probably never would. I didn't feel angry anymore exactly. I felt something more like tired, and underneath the tired, something more like free. On the drive home that night, I thought about what my grandmother had said about quiet rivers, about moving when the storm comes, about the difference between the people who announce what they're carrying and the people who simply carry it. I thought about how long I had been waiting for someone to see that, how long I had told myself it didn't matter whether they did. A few weeks later, my grandmother called to tell me that she had updated her estate documents. The property in Macon, the land her mother had saved for 40 years to purchase, would come to me. She didn't say it like it was a victory. She said it the way she said most important things, quietly and without ceremony, like it was simply the most reasonable thing in the world. "You'll take care of it," she said. "I know you will." I told her I would. I meant it in every way. A person can mean something. Marcus sent me a text about 2 weeks after the dinner. It said, "I think I crossed a line. I hope we can move past it." I read it twice and set my phone face down on the counter. I didn't respond that day or the next. Not because I wanted to punish him, but because some things need to sit before you know what to do with them. What I do know is this. I spent a very long time measuring my worth by whether the right people were watching, by whether the effort I put in was being registered by the people I most wanted to see it. And for years, the answer felt like no, but the right person was watching. She'd been watching the whole time, from the head of the table with her good pearl earrings and her yellow tulips, and 80 years of knowing exactly what a person looks like when they're doing the real work. She saw me. And in the end, that turned out to be more than enough.